I mean, Matt, you're normally not a pre-order guy, but I mean, gosh, you dropped a lot on this game. Power Wash Simulator 2 was announced, and you were just like, take all my money. You spent, what, 1,000 hours on the first Power Wash Simulator?
Yeah, I'm surprised they had a digital deluxe gold premium edition, and I snatched that up as soon as I could.
Yeah. What is it? I mean, do you think it's a weird phenomenon that games like Power Wash Simulator have just like become so successful that like their sequel is like, check out these pretty high-end engine graphics? You're like, what is this, a AAA game now? They've got like nicely animated trailers and stuff. You're like, it's Power Wash Simulator 2. It's not supposed to look amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I played it. I actually played it with X Factor a couple years ago.
I didn't realize it was a co-op game. Is it really?
Yeah, it's a co-op game. You just kind of chit-chatted and cleaned a bunch of buildings together.
Yeah. I think that's sort of the like getting older gamers, right? I think that's where these markets exist. You know, sometimes you're like, I don't want to shoot anyone today. I want to clean my car.
Yeah. There is something satisfying about it, but at the same time, I feel like I don't really see myself ever wanting to play because like I'd rather go read or watch a movie or something if I want to chill.
Yeah.
Some people will put it on and then like listen to a podcast, which is like, you know, that's fair. Or they'll listen to an audiobook. But I feel like that just kind of exacerbates this problem of just always having to have to do something or multitask. Yeah. Where it's like, no, just enjoy the audiobook or enjoy the podcast or whatever, you know, you're doing.
Well, also, like, there's a lot of games that require very little mental activity to play and have fun with. And so while Power Wash Simulator certainly falls into that category of needing almost no brain cells, I can still play Path of Exile and not really turn on my brain as well. You know, so I'd rather play that and then listen to a podcast or whatever on the side than Power Wash. But you know what? To each their own. It's like
exactly.
Yeah. I like those trucking games, right? And once you get into those ones, you're just like, I mean, I'm just driving.
Right.
You're just driving, you know. Yep. That's it. It
requires simulators.
Yeah. You ever like get in the car and you're like, you've driven the same route so many times that you'll get to your destination and be like, your brain kind of like turns back on. You're like, wait, I don't remember anything about driving.
It's a little scary, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of freaky, right? You're like, dang, I just autopiloted that. Like, I hope I was aware of things because I just don't remember.
You probably were, but yep.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, huh?
It's freaky.
Because you're just like thinking about taxes or like what you're going to have for dinner or something. And then you're like, oh, I'm here.
You're thinking about taxes on the regular.
Well, it's tax season. I just brought it up.
It's true. It is tax season. Yeah.
Yeah. You, how much you owe, Matt?
I don't know. I haven't done my taxes yet.
All right. Do you have a tax guy or do you like do TurboTax?
I basically do most of it myself, but yeah, okay. I have someone that finishes it up for me.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Just to make sure all the, T's are crossed, I's are dot. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, before we get any deeper on this tax conversation, welcome to the podcast, everybody. Thank you so much for showing up to the Level With Me podcast. We do the show every Wednesday, and if you are a Patreon member, you can come by and listen to us record it live on Mondays and hang around for a little post-podcast show, which now that the F1 season has begun, let me tell you, it is going to dominate that post-podcast show discussion. I mean, opening race, spicy. It's fun watching basically borderline billionaires risk their lives pulling like 7G turns in the rain. You know, you're like, okay, that's cool. I'll watch that.
Yeah.
Fun times. There's a lot going on in gaming right now. We've got GDC starting. Well, it would be halfway through the week once we post the show, but it's starting today when we're recording.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, there's supposed to be a lot of cool Nvidia showcasing. There's some new anti-cheat AI thing I want to talk about, which sounds cool. Nvidia is going to make a big show of their new DLSS stuff this year. They're going to be showing it off in the Half-Life 2 remix. Have you seen or heard about that at all?
Nope.
Okay, so it's coming out on the 18th, and it is basically a demo of Half-Life 2. You have to own Half-Life 2. You don't have to have it installed, but you just have to own it. And you'll be able to download this, and basically they're using their Remix software, which has gone open source. And the Remix software takes all the graphics from the games, and it swaps out all the lighting and all the assets and all the shaders at runtime and then replaces it with better stuff. And now they can even add in volumetrics. So they can add fog and smoke and shading to the environments and all that stuff. And it's really crazy. So they've basically, the demo is going to be like several levels from Half-Life 2, but they are remastering the entire game. So once it's done, the whole game will be remastered. And it's like, it's like a definitive way to play Half-Life 2 now. It's like, this is what you would expect if Valve said, hey, we're launching a remaster of Half-Life 2. It looks really good. Yeah.
It does look good. It definitely does look good.
And what's cool about this tech...
This is going to be something that starts getting used on all... We won't even have to remaster games anymore if this technology actually works out the way that they want it to.
Yeah. Well, the whole community can do it. So, like, the community can group up on a project just like any mod team. Be like, okay, let's just replace all the tanks in Battlefield 1942, and you do the soldiers, and you do the weapons, and we'll just turn on ray-traced global illumination and, like, super high-end shaders and all this stuff. And all of a sudden you're playing what is exactly the original 1942 in terms of the mechanics under the hood, because Remix is literally changing none of the game code. You know, they're not changing the timing of anything or the scoring or any of the under the hood mechanics, because it literally can't. It's not designed to do that. It just takes all the visuals and updates them. And you're like, dang, that's
pretty cool.
Yeah.
That is cool.
So the Half-Life 2 example is very impressive. And, so they're like using all kinds of new crazy, I don't even know what it is, like neural rendering tech is what they're calling it.
It's called magic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what it is. They figured out ways, you know, have you ever used Photoshop's like content aware fill where it okay. So like you scan a section of the image and then you fill it in with, it'll like remove things that seem out of place, or like a piece of garbage is on your lawn, you can circle it and then have it just remove that piece of garbage and it replaces.
I have heard of that feature. Yeah.
It
uses AI, right?
I don't know what it uses. That's been around for a while. I think kind of AI stuff. But anyway, Nvidia is doing something. I don't even know if this is the right way to describe it because it's completely beyond me. But they're taking the same type of like, hey, let's look at the environment around us and fill in the blanks. But they're doing it with ray-traced global illumination lighting now, and apparently it's like way more performant. And they're like, yeah, we only need like a quarter of the rays now, and we can make it look just as good, if not better, as we did before. And you're like, come on, guys, this is crazy. Because they're just filling in the gaps. You know, they're just like, yeah, we'll just turn on all of those AI chips we got in our card and fill in the gaps in real time at 400 FPS, which is insane.
It is cool.
Yeah.
I do. So it feels like a bit of a mixed bag right now, because some people are like, you know, excited about the new features and new technology, but other people are really excited because it seems like AMD, their new graphics card, while still reasonably expensive, is actually kind of now caught up a little bit in some respects, at least in raw power, if you overclock them compared to like their 5080. So it's nice to see that AMD is kind of, you know, stepping up a little bit more than people were kind of expecting.
Plus, you can buy them, from what I hear.
I did hear that too, yes.
Which is a huge bonus for anyone looking to use a piece of hardware. First, you got to be able to buy it in Nvidia. They've been short supply for quite a while.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think about, considering the prices of those cards. You're like, how many people are dropping like $1,000+ on a video card, man? This is wild.
Well, they've been getting criticized for having a like paper launch, I think is what it's called, where they don't actually have a ton of like inventory.
Yeah.
I don't know if the validity of that, I'm not actually sure, but
I've heard them claim that tactic for a while, and there probably is some sort of thing, because then the news becomes the scarcity of like, everybody wants the product, and now people are like, oh dang, if I want to get one, I better sign up looking now, you know?
Yeah.
So I bet you there is some sort of formula that they figured out where they're like, we'll make way more money doing it this way.
regardless, love the competition. I hope Nvidia and AMD both, have a good rivalry because we need that as the old customer.
Yeah. Well, I will say, self-plug here, having messed around with DLSS in my own game recently, and FSR, which is AMD's sort of frame gen anti-aliasing tech equivalent.
Yeah.
The stuff that Nvidia is doing with DLSS 4 is insane. We got it working in our game, and I was getting like 400 FPS, and this is a game that we're like still really trying to get some performance out of it. We've got some major performance problems in certain areas of the UI just being inefficient and stuff.
Does it feel a little bit like a slippery slope where it's like, I don't have to optimize this nearly as much as I thought because we have DLSS now? Hell yeah.
It doesn't feel like a slippery slope because we're always making the Steam Deck our like baseline. And so if it doesn't run well in the Steam Deck and the Steam Deck doesn't technically support DLSS, you can mod it in there with some pretty clever mods that people have figured out. But
this was more of a criticism at the general state
of
the industry. Like every game seems to be horribly optimized, and you have to use DLSS and
I think you are exaggerating, but it's an interesting discussion because I've seen it talked about recently. I saw a Reddit post that had kind of blown up and went like to the top of Reddit where somebody was like, I feel like all I hear about is DLSS hate, but like every time I turn it on, I'm like absolutely blown away by how much better everything looks and feels. And
I like DLSS.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to hate on it. I'm more of just kind of criticizing some game devs
actually,
or maybe not devs, but
specifically
publishers.
frame gen, right? Because frame gen is the fake frames, quote unquote.
Right.
Do you remember when the anti-aliasing side of, because when DLSS first launched, it was about anti-aliasing for the most part, right? It was like, hey, we can smooth out the edges, and then it turned into really smart upscaling, and then it turned into frame gen. So it's just kind of evolved to add all these new features. But even in the very early days of like resolution scaling and maybe even basic DLSS anti-aliasing, there was a lot of pushback against it, saying that like it was faking things and making things not feel right, or that like some games didn't implement it correctly, and so people were judging their opinions off of that. And so like even in the early days before like 10 years out from frame gen or whatever, I don't know what the timeline actually is, people were complaining about it. Now we've fully accepted like DLSS anti-aliasing is like, yeah, of course I would turn that on. Why would I want jagged edges on things? And dynamic resolution scaling. That's great. It looks amazing at 4K. I can play at 4K, but it's really playing the game at like 1080p and upscaling, and it looks incredible. Like they've really dialed in some of that tech to a level where you're like, I can't even visually tell the difference anymore if I'm playing natively or at an upscaled res. And now we're getting the pushback against frame gen because it's fake frames, and a poorly optimized game using frame gen can still feel pretty bad because if the game's
very bad.
Yeah, if you're running at 20 FPS behind the scenes, but you're seeing 60 or 80 because of frame gen, it's not going to feel good. You're going to be like, is there input delay in this? Why are things reacting slowly? It's because you're playing at 20 FPS.
That was my Stalker 2 experience. It was like, I got 60 FPS. No, you don't. No, you don't.
Yeah.
It was miserable. It was terrible.
Yeah. Stalker 2 at launch was not fun. Well, it was fun, but it was
fun. It was great, but it was not. The game wasn't done. It was an incomplete game. It should have been early access or something. But
I kept getting frustrated because I felt like I was just missing shots that I should hit. I'm like, why am I? Do I just suck all of a sudden at first person shooters? Which I mean,
getting a little old out here.
I'm getting older, man.
Shots.
I played a little bit of the finals the other day, and I was like, "Oh, these kids, man! These kids, they're too fast."
Young whippersnappers, they are fast. It's wild.
Yeah, the finals is a good game to test your reaction times with. You're like, okay, you can't account for 1,000 things exploding everywhere in your face
as they're flying through the air.
Yeah. Solid game. Excited for season 6. Actually, that
around the corner.
That heavy minigun.
Does look enticing.
Yeah. I am excited about it. And the they got lever action now. Just cool crap, man. Cool crap. Yeah. The game just looks damn nice, and the performance is amazing, man. For like,
it's pretty good.
To throw it back to game dev stuff, my tech artist keeps referencing the finals as like having some of the best like shader compilation he's ever seen. He's like, wow, they like nothing stutters in that game. It all pre-compiles and it's amazing. Like no Unreal games do that. Like they figured it out. I'm like, dang, they know what they're doing over there, man.
They do. The only criticism I have is because it's all
here we go.
side.
UI again. I knew it.
No, it's the movement. And unless they've tightened that movement up, I always feel a little floaty when I'm running around.
Does it still feel floaty? I didn't notice it as much last time, but maybe
they've tightened it up.
Yeah, possibly.
Or maybe I'm just a super sensitive man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when it comes to UI, we all know that you are.
That's true. I am
a little touchy.
Little touchy here and there.
Yeah. I'm not shipping my game until you sign off on the UI.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I'll make all the critiques.
We're going to get a little stamp and it says like Matimio
approved.
Yeah. So speaking of GDC, looping us back around to that, yes. It is the first day of the week while we're recording it. So I don't know what's been revealed by the time the podcast goes live. One of the things that I think is interesting, and we've talked about this, this tech has been talked about for quite a while, but it's been at various levels of development, is AI anti-cheat, right? Cheat makers are using AI now to create cheats that become undetectable or very difficult to detect. And now the solution to that is to create AI anti-cheats. So
the arms race continues.
Yes. Yeah. So Tencent is putting on a talk about their new anti-cheat that's being developed specifically around FPS games. And they're claiming that it can like basically shut down cheats, brand new cheats before they, it'll figure out what they are, figure out their patterns, shut them down. They haven't had the talk yet, so I can't tell you any more details about it yet. Right. I love the idea of it. It would be super cool if AI anti-cheat could actually, like, the reason why this is important is that it could literally usher in a new era of gaming if they could actually shut down cheating, right?
Yeah. Or it could usher in a new era of cheating.
Well, they're already trying to usher in the new era. I would argue we are currently entering the new era of cheating, and they're trying to usher in a new era of anti-cheat. And we're like, please, anti-cheat. But, I mean, ever since I can remember, at least since starting YouTube, certainly, there's always been the question of, like, is that dude cheating? Like, what's going on? Is that person cheating over there? How's this guy 100 kills and 2 deaths, like, is he in a helicopter or
is he legit?
Yeah. So that happens all the time in any game, whatever you're playing. And it sucks. And some games are absolutely rampant with cheaters. There was that like Tarkov video where the guy estimated about a third of people in Tarkov were using cheats. And you're like, that's insane. Even if they're not abusing the heck out of them all the time. It's just wild to think about people just being comfortable on that scale using cheats to get an advantage. And you're just like, oh my God. So it means that if AI anti-cheat could say eradicate most, if not all of those cheats, then we could like enter the era of gaming in which everybody's the legit gamer again. Like that would be, can you imagine, dude?
Would be very refreshing to never have to actually question.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're just like, man, that guy's just legitimately awesome.
Yeah. It seems kind of like a dream, like sort of you're like, yeah, that alternate reality sounds so cool. Wouldn't that be cool if that reality existed? Nice. And all we're thinking about is people not cheating in video games.
Yep.
But yeah, that would be cool. Also, I don't think a lot of people realize how much it hurts indie devs who can't afford to spend, 25% of their budget on making anti-cheat software for their competitive multiplayer games.
For sure.
Because as soon as an indie dev's multiplayer game becomes successful, the cheats flood it immediately.
Yep.
And then people go, this game sucks. Everybody's cheating in it. There's no anti-cheat. And then it dies. And then indie devs go, Well, that was sort of a exciting and horrible roller coaster. We launched a game. It was super popular and exciting for a second, and then anti-cheat absolutely obliterated it. And there was a lot of games that struggled from it. I remember the Cycle. They spent a lot of time.
That was the game I was
money.
just thinking of.
Yeah, you were looking it up. Yeah, because they spent so much time fighting cheaters, and I remember listening to a talk by the lead dev on that, and he was talking about like a Swiss cheese approach where he's like, basically every anti-cheat has holes in it, so we had to employ this one to capture like 80% of the cheats, then this one below it to capture half of the other ones that made it through, and then this one to try and clean up as much. And by employing 3 different methods of anti-cheat, we were able to capture like 97% of cheaters or whatever, and you're like, this is a company that's struggling just to get their game into more people's hands and to balance it, and they're spending all this time and money and resources on just getting cheaters out of it. And you're like, this sucks. Like, gamers are making our games, we're cannibalizing ourselves,
Yeah. I think that's what's so disappointing is that cheaters are literally ruining the experience for their future self because they won't be able to play the game because they could effectively be making the game die.
Yeah. And any game that comes out after that, those indie devs have to go, well, budgeting wise, should we make 10 levels or should we make 6 and then make a robust anti-cheat? They're always going to go 6 and make that robust anti-cheat because gamers are screwing games up for everyone, Cheaters, I should say, are screwing games up for everyone.
Well, so fingers crossed that whatever this future AI anti-cheat will be able to solve all of our problems, and we can go about our days without worrying about cheaters anymore.
Well, that's how it's been going with the current AI software, right? It's been solving all of our problems.
All of our problems, yeah. It's definitely been the bastion that we've all been hoping for.
Yeah, that problem of having to work? Gosh, it's going to solve that one real soon.
Oh, baby.
Not going to have to work in it. Well, you won't be able to work. I don't know if having, it just won't be an option. I'm not sure what the solution will be, but it won't be an option.
Yep. Dystopian.
Man, isn't it weird that our simple brains always thought of like the AI revolution being like Terminator, with like robots walking around shooting people. And you're like, okay, that seems a bit advanced for all this. And like, what if it just replaced all of our jobs? And
which could be great. Give us more time for free stuff, but we're going to have an infrastructure in place that actually allows for people to survive and live without actually having to work as a means to make a living. Yeah. And would be a completely different system that we have right now and would require a ton of effort and, systematic changes. So good luck with that.
Yeah. Gosh, I always think about, people reference this a lot too, is there's in Star Trek, they talk about how there's like no money in the future. Yeah. And you're like, boy, that sounds nice. As soon as you start thinking about it with a little more depth, you're like, how does that even work?
How does that even work?
You're like, don't worry about it. Don't worry. Everybody's cool in the future. We still work hard for the betterment of humanity. And you're like, why? Why wouldn't you just like chill out and like paint all day or whatever you want?
Because some people legitimately do enjoy the work and they do enjoy progressing and
what
stuff.
What percentage
that
of
wouldn't go away.
society do you think would want to be in the betterment of humanity category?
I feel like there are a fair amount of people that work in certain industries would continue to work in said industries. I think people would no longer work at a grocery store.
I think I'd want to make video games if all of our money and finances were taken care of for the rest of our lives, and somebody was like, either you can just chill out and do whatever you want, or you can make games also. Like, I think I would want to make games. Like, that'd be fun.
Yeah. I mean, I obviously don't have the answers to this. I am so far out of my wheelhouse. I'm a gamer.
I think we're right on the edge of designing communism. Let's move on to before we
I don't know if that's how that works. I mean, I don't sure, maybe.
Yeah, I'm just saying, go down this path a little bit further and all of a sudden we're in communism.
I think that might be a little different, but I hear you.
Yeah. Well, what have you been playing or excited about?
So I've actually been playing Rainbow Six Siege X. Do you hear anything about that?
Yeah.
Apparently every game company now just has to have X in it or something. X Defiant. Rainbow Six Siege X. Now it's for their 10-year anniversary. I understand that, but surprisingly fun. Their new game mode, Dual Front. I was pleasantly surprised. Do you know anything about their new game mode?
Dual Front. It's like, is that the one with respawning, or and you can push both directions? Yeah.
So for those that aren't aware, they're adding in for their new. It's kind of like Siege 2.0, but not really. It is a big update. It is not a brand new game, so it's going to be still maintain all the same operators and all the same maps. We'll get into the other like cool updates that they're adding, but the big thing is that they're adding in a new permanent game mode. I believe it's called Dual Front, and it is 6v6 instead of the standard 5v5, where it is your job to take the other team's objective by planting essentially the diffuser like you normally would. But the twist on it is that they also need to plant a diffuser. So you have a home base and they have a home base. Technically 3 of them. So you cycle through between all. You start up through the first one. Then once you take that, you go to the second one, and then the third one, and then if you take that, you win. They have that very same goal, but for your side of the map. And so it's this constant ebb and flow of
League of Legends Rainbow Six Edition.
I don't know if I'd go that far. It's kind of like capture the flag, but with a like an objective, right? So you got to decide: do I want to go on offense right now? Do I want to stay on defense? And you kind of have to weigh the pros and cons of that. Now, it's definitely more casual, without a doubt, because there's respawning. I think it's like 25 or 30 seconds to respawn back in. So it is definitely way less punishing. But I found that because the respawn was reasonably long, and because you're not instantly right back in when you spawn back, you have to kind of like make your way back.
Yeah, 30 seconds isn't nothing. That's like an eternity in the ADHD gamer's brain.
Yeah, for sure. But it finds this nice balance of being a lot less sweaty and a lot less punishing because you can get back into it, but also still retaining the tactics somewhat of the base game where you're on defense and they try to push in and do all the things that they normally would, maybe come from above, maybe hit it from multiple angles, using their gadgets effectively to try to clear the site and then plant. But then if they do successfully do that, now they're on defense because it takes a while much longer for that diffuser to go off and actually win. They have to get to 3 different like blips on the objective, which takes a significant amount of time. And so if you did get taken out, you can then switch to an offensive operator, and now your offense essentially on your defensive objective, if that makes it like any sense at all. So it's this cool kind of like, I don't know, it's a little messy. I won't deny that. It's a little janky at times.
They're trying to throw operators that have all been specifically designed for one game mode into a different game mode.
Right.
Like, it's not all going to be perfect. Yeah.
It's weird seeing Ash reinforcing walls or seeing the defender rappel up onto like the top of the building.
Is Tachanka like MVP now?
He's not in there, but I think they will be adding everyone at some point, or they'll be like rotating the operators.
Yeah. I think the other big ticket item that, doesn't matter to you, Mr. Wealthy content creator out there, is that it's gone free to play for...
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I'm just messing.
I know.
Obviously, you own the game, so it's not as big a deal, but it's going free to play, and you get 26 of the 50 operators. Is that how many there are?
That I'm not sure about, but you can't play ranked, I hear. If you go free to play ranked.
I think that's actually a really good decision because obviously free to play is going to attract more cheaters, and that
another
money barrier is a huge disincentive. That's layer 1 of the anti-cheat. Make the game cost money. Like, okay, there goes 50% of your cheaters right there. So it's cool. I think I'm mostly excited by the fact that Rainbow Six has been, regardless of many people not necessarily agreeing with the direction that the game has gone over the years, they've always been willing to take risks and do like crazy stuff with it. And they're like, yeah, we got this big game. Let's like inject something weird or wild, or like, let's completely refactor this thing, or let's go back and really fix up this. And so this many years later, for them to change up the game in such a significant way, I think is pretty cool, to be honest.
I agree. I am someone was very burnt out on Siege, and kind of still am. I don't really have much of a desire to go back and play their standard 5v5. It just
You've
it just
done it
doesn't
too
really
much.
interest me.
Yeah.
I've played it so much that I'm just like, yeah, it's cool to do every so often. But this new 6v6 mode has been a breath of fresh air. So I legitimately am enjoying it, and I'm excited to see where they go with it. I don't think it's going to take the game by storm, and everyone's going to become now like a dual front gamer, and the base game is going to like slowly fade away. I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
But I do think that at least right now it's fun until maybe it gets ruined by a meta or what have you.
Yeah. Well, it's cool, man. I'm glad you're liking it. I haven't played it, but it's just neat to see so many changes hit the game all at once.
And not only that, but they're also, so when I say it's a big update, it is apparently going to be a huge update. They're reworking maps again visually.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the lighting's changing, and it kind of reminds me of like what the old lighting looked like, but without the like flat, like big flashes of light when you try to look outside of a window or something.
Yeah.
Do you remember how absurd that was? Yeah.
Yeah. What do they call that? They call that it's basically it's like your camera is taking in all the light in the scene and adjusting it dynamically, and you're like, yeah, if you don't do that right, you just can't see anything.
Yeah. So they're not returning to that, but it does kind of have a darker, grittier look to it. It looks solid. Little couple of issues with it, because sometimes you'll be on the outside of a building and looking in, and it is pitch black, which reminded me of like old Siege, where I'm like, I physically can't see. It did appear though that enemies will have like a highlight around them now though. So if they're down there and you see like a red highlight, it's like, oh, that is a player. Yeah, I noticed that once.
That's a big difference.
Yeah. They're also going to be changing the audio. They're reworking the audio, I think, pretty much from the ground up, where it's going to be hopefully more directional. It's going to give you more feedback. You'll now be able to identify based off of like the size of the room, like what the sound should be sounding like, and you can use that information to be like, oh, that sounds like they're in the main hallway, right? Because it's bouncing and it's all closer. Little couple problems with it. I heard I was 10 feet away from a person barricading a window, but I was in the other room directly adjacent to it, right next to the door frame. As soon as I passed the threshold, immediately the sound increased to the point where I was like, oh, now I'm right next to them. But as soon as I went back to the threshold, it sounded distant and super far away. Like I was in like 4 rooms away or something. So it was like, it's got some kinks, but it is technically a beta.
Yeah. One of the things I saw that they were focusing on with the audio was the up and down sound signature. Cause I mean, I don't know if you remember before, people could be like way above you and you're like, is that dude like right here? He sounds like he's right here. Or you'd like have no idea if somebody was above, below, on your same floor. That was always really annoying. I think what was interesting is like when Siege first came out, people were like, oh, this game's got great audio. But the longer you play it or the more you think about it, I think there's 2 factors that make great audio. One is like lots of very action specific sound effects. So you go, okay, that guy just stepped on a piece of wood, or he just broke a window, or he walked through some tin cans or something. And I hear that. And that's one side of it. And then the other side of it is like really good directional technology where the sound bounces in a realistic way. And I think on that front, Siege has not been that good with their directionality, where they've had a lot of good sound effects so you can approximate where somebody's doing or what they're doing based on your knowledge of the level. But if your knowledge of the level sucks or whatever, then the directionality actually isn't all that good.
Yeah, I do not envy the audio engineers for any game. It's got to be incredibly hard to nail that down.
Yeah.
So hopefully some improvements will be coming. And then they've got like some quality of life stuff where you can now rappel and like sprint like while you're rappelling.
I've seen that.
And
that
you can also
pretty cool actually.
Yeah, and then you can zip to the other side too. So you can actually do like a cool like maneuver where you'll just like be sprinting, then you'll go around a corner, which was simply not possible in the past. So it's a lot more maneuverable
full
around
Spider-Man abilities, basically like grappling.
There you go. Yeah. I don't think that'll ever happen, but yeah, why not? Sure.
Yeah. That'd be sick. Yeah. It wouldn't be totally out of place with all their zany skins and stuff.
Yeah, that's gotten pretty ridiculous.
Yeah. Is there a Spider-Man skin in there? I feel like there would be. You see
I don't
Spidey
think there
upside
is,
down,
no.
peeking through the window,
No, I don't think they have a Spider-Man crossover.
Be very appropriate.
They have a Rick and Morty crossover.
That's totally appropriate for a
Yeah.
Siege game.
Yeah, totally.
Whatever. Speaking of patches that are changing everything, Star Citizen's 4.1 patch is...
Oh, baby.
It's
Continue.
looking pretty content rich.
That's good.
I do not think it is going to be performant or stable because nothing they have done this year so far has led me to believe that they are anywhere near close having a performant or stable game. And I'm at the point with Star Citizen where if it crashes on me once or twice, depending on the mood, I'm done for the day. I'm just like, I'm not going to put up with this crap. Like, I'm not spending 30 minutes getting back to wherever I was or 40 minutes. I'm just done. I don't got time for it. And so it's led me to not play the game very much lately because every time I hop on, something like that will happen. So the current state of the game in the PTU, the public test universe, is still pretty unstable. A lot of bugs, a lot of issues, but if you haven't been in the game for a while, the content that they're delivering over there is pretty dang cool. They got
What kind of content are we talking about?
Okay, we got an alien mission giver in the game now. Finally, aliens coming into the game.
So actual aliens.
Yep.
How do you communicate with them?
They speak English. It's like Star Trek, dude. They're not a bunch of tentacle monsters being like.
Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Because it's cheesy sci-fi, Matt. It's not like hardcore realistic sci-fi where the aliens are like
I want my aliens
beings.
made of something other than carbon. That's what I want.
Boring. You want your proto-molecule.
That's not boring. That's so cool.
It is
What do you
cool,
mean?
but it's like the problem with realistic aliens is that they're just going to be so much more advanced than you. What's the odds that you run into an alien that isn't like a million years beyond your tech level? Like,
yeah.
You're like, oh wait, you guys started evolving at the exact same time we did, and we're all on the same tech level. That's so crazy. And we bumped into each other in the universe. No way, bro. You're like, no, it's not even going to be like. Even Independence Day was silly, where they're like, oh, they're so much more advanced than us. I'm like, no, they're not. They're like 1,000 years more advanced than you. Like, they should not be. The tech levels are way too similar. They've got shields. Yeah. That's about it. Yeah. So, yeah, it would be just, they would have no interest in defeating
I derailed you.
Yeah.
What does this alien do for you?
No, we need to talk about aliens. The alien can give you new missions. You do his missions. You get access to his special kind of like mission rewards and store and stuff. He's got some unique stuff. Stylistically, he's got like a little asteroid base. It looks very different from anything you've seen before because he's Banu and they've got their own style and tech and all that cool stuff.
Yeah.
They're sort of a trading species. So I think his place in the universe makes sense where he's giving you missions and then you get to get rewards from him and gear and whatever.
So what kind of missions are we talking? What
I don't know. I haven't played it.
Okay. You said it was going to be content rich. I assume you kind of knew what
I've been looking at
the missions were.
Okay, I don't know specifically what he gives you, but I do know some of the other stuff that's in the game.
Well, hit me with that.
Yeah, okay. They got mini sandworms now. Remember the big sandworm?
Oh. Yeah, I do. Never saw it, but yeah.
Yeah.
Mini ones.
So the babies are in the game now, and they will come out of the ground and they'll bite at you and stuff, and you got to shoot them. So that's in there. That's
exciting.
Yeah, of course, new spaceships. Who cares? Billions of those,
Yeah, there's a ton of them.
Tons of new locations in Pyro. They're really starting to
Nice.
flesh out that system with like a lot of new missions and locations to go to and baddies. Overhauling the loot drop system. There's an interesting controversial change, naturally, because it's Star Citizen.
Naturally.
When is there not a controversy going on? The latest one is item recovery has been a requested feature for a long time, where part of funding the game, you can buy things that you wear, like weapons or armor or whatever. But if you die and your body never gets recovered or somebody takes them from you, those are gone from your account forever. People are like, hey, this kind of is weird because if you lose your spaceship, you can reclaim it. And why isn't there any parity with items? Piece. So they've been planning on adding that system in for a while, and the tier zero version of it, which is their first implementation, has some weird rules to it where you can't basically you can't loot somebody's body now if you kill them, but you can take what's in their backpack essentially. So it's sort of like their body becomes the I keep everything on here safety bag, like a Tarkov type thing, you know, and the backpack is, you know, up for grabs or whatever. But it's not their long-term plan, but for whatever reason, they're doing that now. And everybody's like, this is stupid. It takes kind of all the reward out of a firefight and killing somebody, because you're like, I beat that player who tried to jump on me and I used all my ammo and health to get him. And then you go up to loot him and you're like, oh, they don't have anything that I can loot.
Yeah. Is there any, so my biggest issue with when I played was it just felt like there was no reason to have armor and weapons. Like you would get like one and you'd be fine. Like,
yeah.
It didn't really matter what you had as long as you had something, right? So there wasn't really a big incentive to have like, oh, this guy has the legendary, you know, super rare weapon, or this, oh my God, he's got like the +2 armor, whatever piece. It's like, no, it's just armor.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. Because the netcode is so janky and whatever, you're not like, oh man, he beat me because he has a higher DPS gun and went for headshots. Right. You're like, no, he just, the 1,000 rounds he fired at me dumped in one frame, and it was the frame that I got notified that I was being shot, so I'm dead now.
Right.
I think in a very good server setting that can be a little less horrible, like we've played before where it was just catastrophically bad. Where we're shooting and then everybody runs out of ammo and you wait to see who died. You know, you're like, who's the damage going to drop on?
Oh, it's like Russian roulette after the fact. Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, both of us, we're both dead. This game sucks. Yeah. So you get bummed out by that. No, you're correct in the sense that the netcode is ruining all the nuance between armor and weapon stuff, where your heavy armor might make a difference. It does make more of a difference now. They've tweaked a bit of it. So there's more difference than there was before, like way back in the day. And once they start implementing some of their bigger plans for armor, I think less people are going to be running around in heavy armor for every single objective, because the downsides are going to be less worth it for most people. Most people will be kitted out for like kind of a variety of tasks, in which case you might not want heavy armor because it's going to slow you down and limit what you can do with it and all that stuff. And so you'll be like, I'll just run with medium armor to most places.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think it will be good on that front, but it's just not quite yet. But the looting thing has people upset. But I'm excited for 4.1. The content actually looks pretty cool, and it's coming in a year when they said they're going to back way off on content and work on stability, which is interesting that a decent amount of mission-related content is coming in. Just lots of little mission givers and stuff, and it's...
Bro, we just need a cryo freeze pod, because, my God, I want this game. I want it to be good, and I want to play it when it's like actually ready, but man...
Yeah.
It is a trickle.
Yeah, I will say the amount of assets they're going to have in the game by the time some of these gameplay loops are fully online, like looting, salvage, base building, like it would be really exciting to get into as a first player and just being like, what is this? What is that? What is this? There's like thousands and thousands of things you'll be able to pick up and find, and you know, you'll just be like, what is this a fruit? I don't even know. Let's eat it. Oh, I'm dead. You know. That kind of stuff. It'll be fun.
Is this a fruit? No.
Yeah. I think there are things you can eat in the game that do not agree with you.
I would imagine so.
Which is funny. You know, you're like 1,000 years in the future and you ate a pomegranate that was poisonous or something.
That killed you.
Dang it. We're constantly talking about studios getting shut down. Level Zero got shut down. Level Zero Extraction got shut down about 2 weeks after its final launch. I don't think anybody's too surprised by that. And it's not to say that it was like not a good game. It was just not crazy. It didn't stand out enough, you know? in a extraction shooter
Well,
world.
it tried to. So for those that are unaware, this is a game where it's an extraction shooter.
Yeah.
Where you go in and you're a mercenary.
The story is the worst part of the game.
It's so bad. So you're a mercenary going into a zone where like aliens or there was an outbreak or something, but there's basically some monster alien creatures.
And it's like an Antarctic research facility.
Yeah. The cool twist on it is that the aliens are playable by the players.
Yeah.
And so they go around and they try to stop them from extracting, right? So it kind of adds like another human element instead of it just being AI. So that was kind of neat. But when I remember playing it and thinking, this is horrible, like there's no way they're going to be able to balance this and make it engaging and fun. Because if they just focus you and your team alone, or if you're solo, heaven forbid, like GG, like you ain't surviving that. Like it's over, right? Like there's some tools that you get with like light, you can affect it. So it always just kind of felt a little off. Also, the fact that you're mercenaries and you're going on in and you're buying like staplers I'm not even kidding, like nail guns to take out these things. Like, really?
Well, I remember
nails
kind of making fun of that the very first time I played it, and that sort of made it all the way through. And you're like, I'm going in to first of all, you flew me out to this Antarctic research facility. The cost of the trip alone is worth the price of a decent assault rifle. Like, come on, guys. Yeah. And then they send you in with, a dart launcher or something.
Literally a dart.
Yeah, like a dart launcher and some duct tape. And you're like, guys, what's going on? Like, give me something to fight these super aliens that can go invisible and like hatch eggs and spit acid on me and all this stuff.
Right.
Not to mention the other mercenaries who were also fighting, as if it's not hard enough with the aliens trying to rip your heads off. You're like, fight these other groups of guys while the aliens. Yeah. So there was.
Now, full disclosure, I haven't played it since in the beta. And while it did have some cool moments, maybe they've made some improvements to that progression. That was one of the biggest things that I was just critiquing. It was just like this just like, I get wanting to have a nice progression for your players because you want to start, I started off with nothing and now I've got all these awesome weapons and we're kicking ass. But like, as soon as you get to that point and you go against a new player or someone who's like pretty fresh and they've got literally a staple and you're like, that person who's got the staple is just it's GG. Like it's not fun for them. Like there's nothing they can do to come out of that alive. There's nothing.
Yeah, the high-end assault rifles are so much better than like the starting weapons and stuff that it's you're just dropping people. It was I think conceptually there was a lot going right with the title.
I think they were going for something different when the game first got announced because they showed off like these really cool trailers, like really nice looking trailers, and it sort of seemed like it was going to be more of like a horror survival game with like co-op. But then they completely shifted gears and went for like an extraction, and as you said, it didn't work out. And
that can happen a lot where like when you concept the game, it seems like the perfect time to make the game. And then you're like, we're going to like have a great concept within this market. And then 4 years go by and you're like, so like 3 other games came out that have really similar concepts and they're doing okay, or they bombed. And so now we need to pivot. And so that probably happened at one point in the game's development history. But
it's also so tough because it's and I want to make it clear, I'm not rooting for this game to fail.
They were indie devs. They had it wasn't a poorly put together game. It just had a lot of weird elements that didn't fully balance out in a complimentary way.
Because I did have fun during the beta. It had its moments, but you put a couple of these big issues aside, it's still an indie game, and it's really hard to get an audience already to begin with, even for AAA companies.
Yeah.
And if you have a game that requires, like, players to be the aliens, and then you need other people to fight against as well because it's an extraction shooter, having enough people and maintaining that, is going to be tough.
That's why I think the co-op formula is really strong for indie devs, because you're like, you just need a group of friends. And now you can experience the whole game. You need 2 to 3 people, two, including yourself, and then you can go and experience the whole game in a really fun co-op environment, or maybe even still play solo if they balance it right. It's just smarter. I brought them up not so much that I wanted to talk about them shutting down, because that sucks. but it's rare that we get to talk about a brand new studio, or rather an old studio coming back from the dead. Do you remember Acclaim Entertainment?
Not at all.
Yeah, that's okay. They're from like 20 years back.
Okay, no wonder I don't recognize them.
They did Burnout, they did NBA Jam, and Turok. I think Turok is owned by a different studio now or something, because somebody's making a Turok game, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think it's them. But anyway, they're starting back up with some apparently top industry talent and stuff. So somebody's bankrolling them to make some new stuff. Now, granted, is it really Acclaim itself, or is it just the name of the company?
Name of the company.
Yeah.
Be real.
When it's 20 years back, you're like, okay, how many people are returning? Very little. That said, I don't know. It's nice to say, like, hey, this studio with this name is back. They're gonna make some new stuff. We don't have to talk about another game studio shutting down in the tech apocalypse that we are going through right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're back. We'll see what they make.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to transition really nicely with your co-op discussion to split fiction.
Split fiction. Okay.
Have you heard about split fiction?
No, I thought you were going to say split gate. What's split fiction?
I almost said split gate, but no, split fiction. It is the same creators that made the literally game of the year for the Game Awards. It Takes Two. They made A Way Out. They've made some absolute bangers.
Yeah.
And I had the pleasure over the last 2 nights to play it with my good friend, Mr. Sidekick. And it is incredible. It is some of the most creative, mechanically driven game that I have ever played, like ever. I was blown.
Did I miss this trailer? It looks really cool.
I don't know. I have no idea how you missed it. The story revolves around these 2 girls who go to a company that is promising to publish them, and they're able to experience their own stories like never before, where they enter into like this sphere thing, and it will allow them to live out their stories like in their mind, right? But
yeah.
you kind of like VR, right?
I love games that are like, we're going into virtual reality in the game. I always like, it's just fun.
Right.
It always tickles me.
Yeah, but it's like in their head, right? So
Yeah.
But the twist on it is that it goes awry very, very quickly, and both of them get put in the same pod. And so one of them is a fantasy writer, and the other one is science fiction. And so it bounces between fantasy levels and science fiction levels.
Yeah.
And you're doing basically mini games not really mini games the entire way through, but like it's just adding all these different new mechanics.
Okay. I have seen stuff from this game. I didn't know what I was watching. I was just like, what are all these games that people are streaming? I didn't even realize it was the same game.
Yep. It is the exact same game.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. I love, I think mini games are honestly like some of the best co-op things you can do, especially when it keeps mixing it up.
Yeah. I hesitate to call them mini games, even though they kind of are, but the ingenuity of the fun part of it is, you know how like a game will introduce a mechanic and you'll be like, oh, that's kind of cool. But then you use that mechanic the entire game. And by the end, you're like, oh, okay, well, this mechanic's just fine. But it gets kind of repetitive by the end. This game will introduce a mechanic. You'll use it for like 30 minutes and then just throw it to the side and then introduce a brand new mechanic and just rinse and repeat. And then do it in like really unique ways.
Looking at it from the dev perspective, I'm like, it's killing me, dude. I'm like, how much work went into making this game?
Right.
Because you're like, let's just make a new game every 10 minutes.
Without spoiling it, near the end, there is some mechanics I have legitimately never seen in a game ever. And it absolutely blew my mind when it happened.
The hot dog mechanics?
Not the hot dog mechanic, no. But there is a hot dog.
I've never seen the hot dog mechanics.
I've never seen a hot dog mechanic either. So yeah, gameplay wise, absolutely fantastic. The characters are also really like adorable, and I love them, and they're really likable. The main overarching story is really cliche. It's basically big evil executive wants to steal stories from people.
Ready
and
Player One level silliness.
like it is comically cliche,
Yeah.
like bad guy, like it's so like in your face, but it's basically just the catalyst to get them to have the split part where it's fantasy and sci. They're just using that as the vehicle to have that story, and it's fine. Because the actual characters, their backstory is interesting, and like they kind of go a little heavy at times because they kind of got to push the story along, but they do it in a really good way where the writing is good enough where I'm like, yep, I'm in for it.
What age range would you like? I'm looking at this. I'm like, this would be cool to play with my son, but I'm wondering.
Yeah, I don't know age range.
Okay.
It deals with some heavy things, but it is not like an adult game,
okay.
right? Like you could definitely play this with a child for sure. Yeah,
cool.
No, but I don't know how young. I couldn't say that.
Yeah, it's fair enough. I mean, it's funny because like
they do swear. They say like shit and stuff. So
okay, that's probably fine. Yeah, no, my kids watch Adventure Time, and I watch it with them sometimes, and the show's very goofy on a surface level where like they've got a bad guy. Oh, he's not really a bad guy, but he's sort of the guy who usually instigates weird stuff happening, called the Ice King. And he's always stealing the princesses in the land of Ooh, right? So he goes around and he'll steal like Bubblegum Princess or something like that. And you're like, that's light and silly and topical. And then like the show goes on and you learn about his backstory, and like he's got this crown which is magic and it keeps him alive for like ever basically, but it also makes him go kind of crazy. It also made him go insane. So as you learn his backstory before he went completely insane from this like all corrupting magic crown, he had like a wife and she went missing during the apocalypse, and he always called her like his princess. And so he's always looking for his princess, and now he's like stealing princesses, and you're like, what the heck, man? This one's super dark all of a sudden. You're like, this goofy character who's stealing princesses from the land of Ooh is actually just like some mental patient who's trying to find his wife, who's like
his wife.
1,000 years dead. Like, right. Oh my God.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, I'm looking over at my kids. I'm like, you guys getting all this stuff, or
and I think that's what can make it entertaining for a wider audience, right?
Yeah.
Because people criticize me when I said that the Clone Wars, the animated Clone Wars show, right, is a children's show, right? Yeah. It's made for children. And they're like, no, it's got really heavy themes. I'm like, just because there's heavy themes in it doesn't make it not a children's show.
Yeah.
It's still if you watch that first season, it's like it's so obviously like made for a younger audience.
It is hard to sit through as an adult. Yeah.
Right. And there's nothing wrong. I think it's because people like I know I'm getting a little off track here. I'm kind of venting a little bit. I think people, when you say it's a children's show, it's like I'm looking down at you for enjoying something that was made for children. It's like, no, I'm not judging you. Like, it's just, there's nothing wrong with it. Like, Pixar movies are made for children, but they're incredible, works of art, right?
Yeah.
So
last podcast I told you to watch WALL-E. I said it was like one of the better sci-fi movies made. It's incredible.
And that is also a children's movie.
My kids love it. When I say, what movie you guys want to watch for movie night, they're like, WALL-E. And then I'm like, yes, good, WALL-E. I love WALL-E. It's the best.
I got off topic.
It's all right, man. Somebody got offended that you called the Clone Wars a kid's show, and they're like, "No, bro, it's for adults. I love Star Wars. I'm an adult."
And it is for adults too. Like, you can enjoy it. It's just it's fine.
No, but you know what, Matt? I'm gonna double down here. Like the Clone Wars is on the lower end of the like adult acceptability spectrum. You're like, really? You find these stories and narratives deep enough to like captivate you? I will say the last season they did of Clone Wars, like they did 3 more episodes or something, like those were done pretty well, but a huge percentage of Clone Wars is like episodically, I would say, because I've watched all of it through, just like out of like loyalty to the brand or
Star
whatever,
Wars.
Like maybe 1 in 4, 1 in 5 episodes is like got enough depth to it to like where you're like, dang, they did something there. But then the next 3 episodes are like painfully basic, where you're like, this is work to get through this. Like, I know there's probably something else good coming, but I don't want to have to work to get there. You know, like I should be enjoying it episode to episode.
I haven't seen it myself. I've only seen like the first couple episodes, and I was like, this isn't for me. I can't. So
it is funny. They do. Someone made a joke. It might have been like an old SNL sketch or Mad TV or something, where they're talking about how George Lucas designs his alien characters for his universe. And they had like a little wheel, and like you spin the outside of the wheel and it's an animal, and it's animal names, and the inside of the wheel, it's accents. And so it'll be like, oh, you're a French shark or whatever. And I always thought that was like a funny joke, because that seems to be what his characters are in his movies. And then like the Clone Wars is like straight up, that's exactly what it is. You're like, oh, this is the Scottish lemur planet, you know, like it was just so ridiculous. You're like, is that really the extent of your imagination?
That's perfect.
Yeah. It's just so funny. It's like, man, you can design any kind of alien ever. You just spin these two wheels, man, and you got a new one.
Nice. So to bring it back, because I'm not trying to hate on Star Wars.
Is this a gaming show? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Not trying to hate on it, because we all got
Star Wars fans come after him. Let's hear it.
Yeah, please don't. I like Star Wars. Split Fiction truly is, I think, one of the coolest games I played. Like legitimately.
Yeah.
I was just like in awe of like how creative they were. I need to go back and play, because I haven't played It Takes Two, and people are saying like It Takes Two is just as good, if not better. So this dev team really knows what they're doing. And God, if we had more devs that were this creative, we would be eating good, because it was fantastic.
Yeah. That creative and that well funded, because my God, watching that trailer, I'm like, oh, the assets alone, man.
Stunning. Yeah. Absolutely stunning.
Yeah. So you said it's like incredibly good. Now, if there were, say, I don't know, an award show, do you think it would be in the award show?
Are you just trying to like, because I mentioned, yeah, sure, it'll probably be nominated for Game of the Year. Yes. I wasn't going to say it because you always give me a hard time.
You think it could be Game of the Year material, Matt? Do you think we're going there with this one?
I do think it'll get nominated, yeah.
Okay. Especially
considering that they've had a game win in the past. So yeah, I do see it getting nominated.
Okay. I need somebody in chat to keep track of how many Game of the Year awards we get from Matt, or Game of the Year nominations. It's going to be, by the end of the year, it's going to be like 30 games nominated Game of the Year.
I didn't bring it up. You brought it up.
With you, Matt. Okay. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it. That's cool. I'm legit going to check it out, and I need a good co-op game to play with my son. We've been playing Minecraft Dungeons, and we've I'm sort of done. Course. I'm done with it. Yeah. I'm like, okay, we've seen where this game's going to go.
Speaking of Game of the Year, I played a new game called Order 13.
Yeah.
Where you work in a factory, not a factory, sorry. Where you work in a warehouse, like an Amazon employee, but you sleep there. Because that's actually what they have to do on Amazon too, right? Because they're always, And it is a horror game where you have to go into this warehouse, find packages, go back to the safety of your little workstation, and deliver packages and make money that way, so that you can protect and make your cat happy.
Yeah.
The twist on it is that it's a horror game.
Cat happy.
Your cat happy. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You have a cat, and they're very cute. You can name them, and you can change the way they look too.
Yeah, that line just came out of nowhere. You're just like, you got to go in, you got to take these packages, and then you can make your cat happy. And I'm like, oh, is that the objective of the game?
That is the objective. It's a horror game where there's like monsters and stuff that try to scare you, and you have to like work around them. Unfortunately, this felt like a little bit of a streamer game. Unfortunately, it is incredibly one note, where there'll be like a couple of jump scares, and there'll be like a couple of scary things. You'll see like this little dude that like crawls across the ground in front of you when you're trying to make your way to like get a package. But there's different levels to it, and every single one of them just has like this creepy dude that just walks around and chases you if he sees you. And then unfortunately that's just the game. And you just progress. Yeah. From level to level.
I was Googling really quick, because I know this it kind of looked or sounded a little bit like the game that Jacksepticeye is making, because I think he's making a game that's kind of like Five Nights at Freddy's type vibe.
Okay.
And what you described kind of is, it's not like the same game, but it sounded, when you said streamer type game, I was thinking like, something that could provide a lot of goofy jump scares and yeah. Well,
you know what I'm talking about though when I say like a streamer game. Like there's games and there's games that like feel like they're almost made for streamers.
Yeah.
That makes any sense at all?
Yeah, they're either something that's going to jump scare you or aggravate you or just provide lots of opportunities for you to have an exaggerated reaction to something. Right?
Yeah. So it started off okay, but then like its scares just didn't go anywhere and it didn't evolve at all.
Yeah.
It just became the same thing over and over. And I literally just felt like a warehouse worker going around, finding where the packages were, grabbing the package really quickly, and then running back to and fulfill the order with a couple of creepy moments.
It's really hard to keep a game scary though, because
it is.
They're so reliant on jump scares for most of their stuff that unless they're completely changing up the types of enemies or things that you run into like every 10 minutes, you just get used to it. It's like, I remember when Doom 3 came out, which was much more horror focused than the modern games. And like at the start, it is creepy because you're like walking into stuff and then things like bursting through glass and like chasing you and trying to eat you alive and stuff. You're like, I'm getting scared. But then like an hour into it and you like walk into a room, turn around, secret compartment opens up, the zombie walks out, shoot him in the face, turn back around, walk through it. You just get used to where this stuff comes from. They do mix it up a little bit. I remember being pretty far into that game. And then do you remember the fly babies? They're like
the fly babies.
Yeah, they were babies, but had like little fly wings on their backs. And they would go like,
what game again?
Doom 3.
No, I don't remember that.
Yeah, that's stuff.
Played Doom 3?
I had to pause.
Maybe I didn't play Doom 3.
I had to pause.
Was that freak you out?
Yeah. I was like, all right. Some baby thing's gonna attack me in this dark room, because you get into the room and you just hear like in the distance
Dead
like
Space babies.
Mama, and you're like, no. I'm gonna. Can I go around this way? I'm gonna look for a way to go around, and then dang fly babies, man, they got me.
Yeah, the honestly one of the best pieces of advice if you're trying to not be scared in one of these games is to get your character killed. The first time, like it chases after you, whatever. Once you see it happen, you're like, okay, now I know what's going to happen if they catch me, right? And then it just immediately, like, there's something about that in your brain shuts off, like, that scary part where it's like, now I know it's not a mystery anymore, so now it's not as scary.
You hear that, horror game developers? If you want to make your game even more scary, just don't let your player die. Like, let their health keep going down further, but it'll be percentage based. So it'll be like, this guy does 50% health of your remaining health. And then it just keeps getting lower and lower and lower. Yeah.
Well, that also would, eventually get old too.
Yeah, eventually you're like, wait, can I not die? This is ridiculous.
Yeah. It was, so I think Order 13 had some, it was fine. It was cheap. Like I'm not like upset that I played it, but
did you get it
would have
on
been nice
the
if there was
Steam
just
sale?
More. No, I think it was like $8. I think it was on sale already.
Oh yeah,
but it would have been so cool to have
like $10. So
yeah, it would have been so cool to have like a moment where you're going down like this long hallway, right, where you're in like all these different rows and rows of packages, to have like, I don't know, a shadow you see out in the distance, and then you get closer, like, wait, is that actually something? And then to have it like, walk behind something. You're like, oh, okay, that's creepy. And it has a few of those moments where a dude sort of pops out of a box and then like drops, then goes down. But it just, it was like I said, it was really just about this one creature walking around and just had to avoid it, and that was basically the game.
Yeah. Well, horror's hard, man.
It is hard,
especially
it is definitely hard.
Indie devs. It usually has to turn into comedy horror at a certain point,
Yeah.
The game GTFO, I think it's still up and adding updates and stuff. Like, that game itself wasn't like scary, but what I liked about it is that the monsters were horrifying to look at in a sense, but they also, like, the big ones were really powerful. So they would just like obliterate you if you weren't coordinated. And that kind of added this fun element of fear to it, where you weren't like necessarily jump scared from it, but you had to like tiptoe and creep around it. And as soon as somebody in your 4-player party screwed up and like accidentally shined a flashlight on the wrong thing or whatever, and then it triggers them and everybody goes, oh crap, and you all freak out and panic. Like,
Right.
I feel like that game consistently got me to that state. In part was because it was so difficult and you kept losing, and you're like 50 minutes into a mission. You're like, I swear to God,
Right.
Todd, if you mess this up, dude. And
Yep.
Todd shines the flashlight on the
Of course,
monster.
he
and
messes it up.
50 minutes of that mission are gone forever, you know? But yeah, that sort of, maybe having that loss factor, that lose condition, right? Having a high risk situation adds to that fear, where you're not like, oh my God, I've never seen that monster before, but oh my God, that monster also represents us maybe
Potentially
dying
losing.
if
Yep.
we trigger it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah. I think, yeah, if you want a good horror game, GTFOs stand out, but it's really hard.
It's really hard, and you better like red light, green light. I hate that feature.
The unlocking the door thing? Which
red light,
feature?
green light in the sense like they're breathing, they're like scanning around you. It's like, stop, don't move. All right, now go, green light.
Yeah.
Oh, they're moving again. Stop. That got really boring.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
I get that it could add tension, but
I
found it to be obnoxious.
I liked when you went up to a computer terminal and you had to like type in like /key card.
Like actually,
yeah. And
It's like
other
you were
people
hacking.
could look at the computer terminal and you hear your like QWERTY keyboard like loudly typing and be like, oh no, it's hang on, let me get the code for you. It's like, it's actually black key card / whatever, and you're like typing in the code. That just added this layer of like feeling like
cool.
you were in the system actually there. Like they didn't dumb it down too much, where you're just like, okay, query key card black, and then like it would show up like on the map and you'd be like, okay, let's see, it's 2 rooms north, but we could detour to the right and get the blue key card and then come in. So you're like, your planning in it is like meticulous, and it feels like an Aliens movie where you got these retro CRT monitors and you're typing into this little code line to get the info you want. Just good styling. Good styling.
Agreed.
Shout out to those guys, man, for making a cool concept. Well, there was one other thing I wanted to chat about that I thought was kind of interesting, because it feels like the handheld market is kind of on the precipice of just blowing up right now. So people are kind of debating about the Switch 2 right now, because there's a rumor that the price is going to be $400, which...
$400?
Yeah, what's your reaction?
That seems like a lot.
Okay, interesting. To me, that seems pretty much in line with other consoles, but I don't know. What is the Steam Deck?
Other
Is it like
consoles,
300?
I don't know.
Is the Steam Deck 300?
That I couldn't tell you.
Steam Deck price. It might have come down because it's been out for a little while.
$400.
Okay. Yeah, so
or $450.
Right.
But a Steam So the reason why I say 400 sounds a lot is because like I'm just expecting the terrible graphics of the Switch, right?
Yeah. But I mean, Steam Deck's graphics are similar, probably, right? It's probably going to be. Are they? I would imagine the hardware is somewhat comparable. In fact, I think the Switch has an Nvidia hardware and the Steam Deck has AMD hardware. Not saying one is going to be faster than the other, but generally speaking, there's probably a bit better driver support for the Nvidia stuff, and more games can support that tech. But
okay,
yeah, I don't know. I assume
if I had the option between buying a Steam Deck over a Switch 2, I'd probably pick the Steam Deck.
Yeah, but I think that's because you have such a big Steam library already, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
It would be nice to play new Switch games, but I'm not like a big Switch consumer. So
yeah, well, how many games? So out of all the games that you would stream that come out on Switch, a lot of them come out on PC as well, right? So you're like, play it on PC or play it on the Switch. Obviously, play it on the PC. So then you're looking at Switch exclusives, at which point you're looking at Zelda games and Mario Kart. And so from that perspective, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But if you're like a one console guy, or you're buying a console to have couch co-op or to take on an airplane, still seems like a pretty attractive. I mean, the Switch 2 is going to sell like hotcakes. It's going to be super popular.
It's going to be massive. It's going to be humongous.
I was surprised to see so many people upset about the price, just because it
Did they think it was
like the normal price for it, but maybe that's just.
So you think people are overreacting? You think that people are thinking it's too expensive?
So, but maybe it's my inflation brain, where everything's just been getting more expensive, and I'm like, that's. I mean, we live in the world where we're like, only $1,500 for a graphics card. What a steal.
Right. Yeah.
Everything's just gotten prohibitively expensive.
So what was the Switch's price at release? Was $300.
Yeah, but how many years ago was that? That was so long ago, dude.
Yeah, it's been many years.
Yeah. So I'm saying just accounting
but
for
it hasn't
inflation,
reduced in price.
Yeah. Well, that's Nintendo. They don't reduce anything in price.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, I know.
Yeah.
So this is crazy for me to say. But do you remember a time when like new technology would come out and then a couple years later, like the technology, like it would go down in price, like TVs, right? Like, 4K
phones.
TV, phones. Yeah. They don't just like exponentially just keep increasing in price. I mean, they have for phones, they've definitely gotten more expensive, but they've kind of stayed around the same price. Right. So I don't know. To hear it's going up to 400 is fine, because you're right, inflation and everything. But at the same time, like, how much better is this?
Yeah.
But you're also asking for $100 more.
Yeah, maybe they're just trying to stay in line with the other major console vendors. Because what is like PS5? What are they? Do they have the PS5 Pro or whatever? Like,
that's like $750 or something.
Yeah,
crazy.
exactly. So
yeah.
What is a normal PS5? 450? 500? I can't tell. I'm getting different results depending on what you look at, but looks like 400.
I'm seeing $500 for PlayStation 5 Slim.
Okay. Yeah.
PlayStation 5 Pro, $700.
Yeah, and the base seems like 400 maybe. Yeah, like an Astrobot bundle for $400, I'm saying. So, I mean, I think Nintendo's just saying, hey, we can charge the same amount that these other guys are charging. We've got all this proprietary. It's kind of like your laptop's not as fast as your desktop, but your laptop could be more expensive than your desktop because it required all the like tiny component crap that they've got to figure out how to make to build the laptop, right? So,
yeah,
there's that angle to it, right? It's hard to cram tons of components down to a really small space and then cool them off and not create tons of fan noise. That is one thing I don't like about the Steam Deck, is you start playing something and it's like, and you're like, I can't hear the game over the jet engine that is cooling off the Steam Deck right now.
Yeah.
So I have no doubt Nintendo will do a better job of that, because the first Switch, I don't remember almost ever hearing any audio come out of it. I will say I just hope that the Switch 2 is like ergonomic this time. The Switch 1 was like how to kill your hands. It was the worst ergonomic.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. So anyway, the reason why I brought that up was there's rumors about Xbox announcing a handheld coming in, which seems funny because I would imagine it would just be a Windows. They're talking about like creating sort of a Windows version that's like specifically for gaming. So it would be like the Xbox OS or whatever the heck they call it,
Yeah.
So it would run all Windows games, but probably just not have all the Windows junk associated with it. So they're working on some sort of handheld. Switch 2's coming out. SteamOS just got a pretty interesting update that has a desktop built into it now. So basically, it's got its own Linux desktop interface, so you can use it for more than just games, like whatever you want to install Linux-wise. And it's open source. It's open source, I think. So, or it's at least, I don't know if it's open source, but it's free for other manufacturers to install and use in their devices. And so they've got more handhelds coming out now using SteamOS. Just seems like we're really heading for like this sort of mobile gaming epicenter soon, where just like tons of stuff is designed to be played on these little handhelds. I think it's kind of a cool concept. Obviously, it's some games are going to do better on that in that space, but with all of the like, you know, the frame gen and DLSS stuff geared towards making lower end hardware run games at higher frame rates, it sort of seems like all that tech is kind of building up around one concept to a degree, or at least favoring one concept, which could
I mean, it could be because the blending of, they realize that mobile is so lucrative, right? And if they can kind of bridge the gap and get more people. So I can see why it would be desirable and why companies are after it.
I mean, I like this Steam Deck. I don't play it as much because I've got a PC. So if I want to sit down and do some real gaming, I like being in my chair and at a desk and stuff, because it just, everything's here is ergonomically set up. I actually feel less comfortable if I like sit back in bed with like 2 pillows and start playing a Steam Deck. I'm like, it feels physically less comfortable than actually sitting in a chair at a desk to do it. So it's always my preferred way to do it, but it is
if
cool.
You're traveling a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, we got a guy at GDC right now with our game build down there.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
Oh man, we really killed the performance on it before. We added all these systems in a rush, and then we're like, all right, check the Steam Deck's performance, and it was not good. So we had to like try and fix as much as we could quickly, and we kind of got there. It's playable. It's playable, but I was like, oops, say goodbye to like 20 FPS.
Yeah.
But it's great for walking games around and being like, check out this game, you know? I got a friend who's always like, have you played this? And he's like, got it on his Steam Deck. So
nice.
Balatro on the Steam Deck. That'd
be a good one.
You.
Yep. That'd be a good one.
You watch anything good? Movies?
No, I've been making a new PC.
Oh, you've been making a new PC? How long is the process of making the new PC?
A couple days.
Yeah.
Been waiting for parts to come in. It's been like over a decade since I've made one. So like forgot like how to do it. So I've been watching all these tutorials and I've been reading the manual, and bro, the manuals they send you are terrible. They straight up are like, they don't tell you how to do it. And I'm like, what even is this piece?
Oh, the manual.
I try to put in
the manuals. I never even knew that they had manuals on how to build a PC. Like,
well, so on the motherboard, right? So I have the motherboard, and I wanted to put in a SSD M.2 slot, right?
Yeah.
And all the tutorials online that I saw, all the tutorials that like, or even in the manual, it's like you have to unscrew something, and then you slide it in, and then you screw it down, and then it latches it in.
Yeah.
This thing didn't look like it like kind of like bounced up and down. It would like wiggle a little bit, but there was no way of screwing it in and out. And I was like, what is this thing? It was only until I watched a YouTube video, a specific YouTube video, I was like, oh, it was ingenious. Instead of having to use a screw, it slides to the side slightly. It kind of like, once you push down, it will slide to the side, and then it will lock in. So no screws required. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. That's so cool. Then I need to put the other M.2 SSD in, and it's a different system. Also, not a screw. And I'm like, how does this work now? What is this thing?
Okay, also Mr. Fancy Pants over here with 2 M.2 drives, just been I'll put my second one in, and then I put my third M.2 in. Your computer
has 2 M.2. Shut the hell up.
It's true, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. You probably has more than 2.
I don't know. They probably make some with more than 2 slots. I don't know if those exist.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah. I mean, I do have an 8 terabyte SSD in there, for video storage and stuff.
God damn.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So I then had to find another YouTube video that showcased how to use that one. And it was just a little plastic knob thing. I was like, I can spin that around. But what I didn't realize is really, really small. There's actually a little gap in between the pieces where it will then latch on to the device. And once again, no screws required. I was like, that's really cool. Why wasn't that in the manual? There was even a QR code to show how to set it up.
Yeah.
And it takes you to like their bog standard like just M.2 installation, which required a screw. I'm like, why is your manual linking to a video that isn't for this motherboard? What are you doing?
Yeah, that is really common, even in like big hardware manufacturers. They'll be like, here's the setup procedure. And you're like, yeah, for like a product that came out 2 years ago. How about this one? You know? Yeah, that's funny. I feel like, are you live streaming yourself building a computer?
No, I was building myself.
Oh man, I'd watch that, Matt. That would be fun.
Would be content, yeah. I haven't gotten like, I know I'm getting animated right now because it's funny to talk about, but I've been trying my best to just, you know, level head, just be like, okay, taking it slow, looking at all the different YouTube tutorials and like going through and taking my time. It's taking me a long time to do it, but I'm trying, you know, just personal goals of working my way through it, and it's been good so far.
Atif in chat says,
I haven't turned it on yet.
Engineers write the best quote unquote manuals, which I can attest to, I worked at an engineering at Xerox making those manuals for engineers. And like some of it, I was just like, so we're just like, say, put that circuit board in there and like nothing else. Like, that's it. Just put it in. You're good to go.
That's what it kind of felt like. Where, you know how those tutorials where it's like how to draw an owl, draw 2 circles. Then the next step, draw the rest of the owl. That's what these manuals felt like. I'm like, what about like all the other steps? Like, what do you mean?
Not to constantly bring up game dev stuff, but it is basically all I do like every week. But the manuals for Unreal Engine 5, they're like, here's a system that can do anything your mind can possibly imagine. And we will explain the whole system to you in 2 minutes of reading. And then like, you'll be like, okay, I think I get the basics. Wait, is that it for the documentation?
That's it.
And
Good
then
luck.
you get into it and you're like, what if I want to make this? What does this thing do? How do I connect these things together? Like, you've read the documentation. You are on your own now, sir. And you're just like,
consulted the text, the sacred text. Good luck.
You're like, you spent thousands of man hours building this new technology and like all of 5 minutes writing the tutorial for how to do it. You're like, come on. And everything, I'm not kidding. Everything in the engine is like that. And then you go to like a YouTube video that like breaks it down better for you. But the joke about YouTube videos explaining how to develop a video game is that every tutorial is made by somebody who just figured out how to do that thing.
Oh, yeah.
So they're not an expert. They're just like, I just figured out how to do this, and now I'm going to talk about it like I know what I'm talking about. And then you follow their tutorial, and then you get further into development. And you're like, wait a minute, the way they taught me to do it is like the least optimized, worst possible way to approach this system. And now we have to completely redesign everything because I followed this dude because the documentation was so bad. It's like this amazing chain of events that I feel every dev goes through when learning all this crap, where you're just like, who can I trust? I can't. You just have to like find somebody who knows the shit and you'd be like, how do I do this? Please tell me. Yeah. It's fun. So you're not alone, Matt, but you should live stream yourself building a computer because I will tune in for that. I'll donate. I'll donate for that one.
Oh, will you? Okay.
We'll have a game every time Matt
I could just take
swears,
everything off and just try it again.
Every time Matt swears, doesn't know where a screw's supposed to go. Why isn't it turning on? Yeah, drink every time Matt says, why isn't it turning on?
Please just turn on.
Well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
Building a computer, I would say physically is very easy, but when you get to the part where you turn it on, there's usually some weird little crap that you didn't think about.
Don't say that. Shut your goddamn mouth.
You're going to get there and be like,
shut your goddamn mouth.
And then somebody's going to be like, obviously you had to connect the pin to the thing and then set that. And you're like, okay, I didn't know that, because every motherboard is like, we're going to reinvent the wheel with the startup protocol. And you're like, okay. The last time I did it, it didn't work that way. And they're like, well, now it works this way, but only this time because nobody likes the way we designed this feature. So this is a one-off. Yeah.
Yep.
You'll be fine. Dude, it's so much. I built a computer for the first time when I was 16. So think about that for a second. The internet sucked.
That was like 40 years ago.
The internet was like barely a thing. People were using Netscape and shit, it was not good. There was no videos on the internet, first of all, because that was way too much data to transmit over your phone line, your telephone line, where
literally.
Yeah, I mean, shit, we were just out of rotary phones by that point, you know? We're like, check out this button for dialing a number. How advanced is that? So to set the scene, so I built my computer back then, and I remember like one of the dumb things I got stuck on was, I had a floppy disk in the floppy disk. The floppy disk drive had a floppy disk in it for whatever reason. I can't remember if I put it in the drive or if it was just installed, but like I couldn't get it to boot. It kept hanging on like this thing, and then my buddy came over and he was like, "Oh yeah, you've got a floppy disk in the drive. Like you got to take that out or it won't boot or whatever." And I was like, "God damn," just some dumb thing like that. But you didn't have internet to really back you up on it. There was no good like how-tos on the internet at that point. They hadn't figured out how to monetize the net, so nobody had put time into making good tutorials yet. Yeah. And that was it. You just had to figure crap out, man. So from that perspective, and you had jumpers on motherboards back then. So jumper was like a little piece. You probably still have them, but you almost never need them for anything. They just like give them to you in case you're like old school or something. But basically it's a tiny little piece of metal. Looks like a paper clip type thing. And can you hear me?
Is my graphics card freaking out? What the hell's going on in the background?
You look okay on this end.
Okay. That was weird. Okay, continue.
Good thing you're building a new PC.
Good thing.
So you get these little jumpers, and the motherboard manual, you'd open it up and be like, well, if you're installing dual channel memory, put the jumper over these two pins, and you would have to connect two metal pins on the motherboard so that when it started up, the electrical current would go through that jumper and be like, it's in dual channel mode. And then if you're in like a different mode, you had to take the jumper off and put it on different pins so the motherboard knew what to do.
Jesus.
So like, I mean, that's where it was back in the day. And the amount of things that could go wrong, I feel like were exponentially higher.
Exponentially, yeah.
So much
They've
higher.
definitely made it, not only is it more streamlined, but you have now more tools at your disposal too.
Yeah. I remember you had to have, there was like a hard drive update where like, and this is pre-SSD. This is still platter drive, but there was a new platter drive tech. And if you wanted your computer to recognize it while trying to install an operating system, you had to like put a floppy disk in, load drivers off the floppy disk into the BIOS to recognize your hard drive so that you could then install your operating, like just all this crap that you're just like, this is, and just horrible
By
stuff.
modern standards, it's nonsense.
Yeah, you're just plugging crap in and being like, go, and it like mostly works nowadays.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that, Matt.
Thank you.
You want to leave our people today with some super useful advice?
Yeah. So if you are struggling and they give you a terrible manual for whatever you're trying to set up, search for it online and you'll actually find a legit manual from their website, because apparently it costs too much for them to include that in the packaging, and that actually does usually have a lot better information. So that actually does help.
You know what my favorite is, and I see this all the time? You'll get a manual and it'll have like a QR code or a link to the video tutorial, and it's somebody else's video tutorial, like just a dude.
Oh, nice.
It's
just some random guy. They didn't even make it themselves.
Hey guys, this is Joe. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Here's how to install the light switch for this thing. And you're
they
like, what
offload that stuff.
I know, because what it ends up being is like a Chinese company makes it, and they're like, all right, do we make a manual for English-speaking audience? Or like, this dude has a video right here. Let's just link him to it.
Yeah, why not?
And what's great about it too is like, it's the original video. It's not like them downloading that video and putting it on a website where it will live forever. You're like, if Joe takes his video down, nobody has a tutorial anymore.
Yeah.
This QR code literally links you to nothing now.
To nothing. Yeah.
Oh man.
Probably will never be a problem, but
yeah, I've seen that. I'm not going to lie. I've seen that like 4 or 5 times now in products that you're like, they should have their own video. This shouldn't be Joe's video.
Yeah, for sure.
Good times. Well, good advice, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you all so much for watching the podcast every day, Wednesday. If you guys want to support us more, check out the Patreon links in the description. And we will be popping off to have a little post-podcast chat with our Patreon members. As always, guys, we appreciate you very much. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Take care.